Welcome to Superhero Pow. I'm your host nerd, Tom Fremgen. Today I wanted to talk about Wonder Woman. And I ask you, is there any more maligned big-name superhero than Wonder Woman? I mean, we ain't talking Hawkman here, we're talking Wonder Woman. She's one of the only 3 superheroes to keep her title during the 1950s superhero bust. Superman and Batman were the other 2. And yes, Green Arrow and Aquaman continued as backup features. She also sells a ton of merchandise every year, which is the main reason DC keeps publishing her, even when her sales are down. Not to mention she's arguably the most famous female superhero in the world. So while yes, she was the 3rd superhero to get a network primetime TV show, behind Batman and the Green Hornet, Superman's was syndicated, she's never had a cartoon series, and had to wait until 7 Superman movies, 8 Batman movies, and a movie about steel to finally get a major motion picture. But the bigger issue is, why does DC seem to have no idea what to do with her? To that point, I'm sick and tired of hearing comic book creators say Wonder Woman is tricky, as in hard to do right. Well, forgive me, but no. You just have no idea who Wonder Woman is. So you have the problem, not Wonder Woman. You see, typically, when any superhero is having a sales slump, the #1 cure is to take that character back to basics. Go back to the tone and the focus of the original issues when the hero was a hit. Works almost every time. But guess which hero never gets that treatment? Yep, Wonder Woman. Because DC usually runs in the completely opposite direction. Back in the late 1960s, DC thought the best thing to do to improve Wonder Woman's sales was to have her not be a superhero anymore. Can you imagine Marvel going, well, Spider-Man isn't selling too well these days. Let's take away his powers and teach him Kung Fu. Makes me wonder if anyone writing for DC even knows what Wonder Woman's basic concept is. Assuming this to be true, because look at the evidence, let me break it down for them. Wonder Woman was created back in 1941 by William Moulton Marston and artist Harry G. Peter, based on Marston's belief of the sexes, which you are free to believe in or not, but they are what Wonder Woman's core belief is based on, which is women are superior to men. Marston looked at world history, and currently being in the middle of a Second World War, decided that it was all pretty much screwed up by men, their greed and their wars. Since he believed women were more nurturing, surely the world would be a better place if they ran everything. Well, there is that story from the Great Recession of 2007, where 3 of Iceland's 4 major banks failed. The bank that didn't fail was run by women. But I digress. So, on a small little island, Marston created a world run by women. Using the Greek myth of Amazons as a jumping-off point, he created Paradise Island. In the 2,000 years they lived apart from men, they became physically and mentally superior to men. They had machines that could look into the past, purple rays that could cure any illness or injury, and invisible aircraft. And again, based on the ancient Greek ideal image, they were perfect in mind as well as body. They trained in sports and combat every day. And let's be honest, when you're immortal, combat is pretty much a sport too. They had no malice, no anger, and no real danger as well. Into this environment was born Wonder Woman, the only child of the Amazons, and their princess to boot. Side note, if you're looking for a personality flaw for Wonder Woman to have, I think spoiled rotten might be the only one. Clearly her birth was no accident. The Greek gods must have planned for this, though I believe George Perez was the first one to state it in the comic books. Princess Diana was always a little different from her sister Amazons. So when the Greek gods demanded the Amazons choose a champion to help the Allied forces defeat the Axis in World War II, Diana was that champion. If you remember, her mother the Queen forbid her to enter the contest, but Diana was a child of destiny. She entered and won. And as it is said in Sensation Comics #1, Wonder Woman, to save the world from the hatreds and wars of men in a man-made world. That's who Wonder Woman is. even more than Superman, Wonder Woman is out to make the world a better place. And how does she go about doing it? To quote All-Star Comics number 8, her first appearance, "A woman to whom the problems and feats of men are mere child's play." Did you get that? Not just feats, but problems. Wonder Woman is here to fix things, not beat up bad guys. And how could she not? She's basically a school teacher showing up on the island in The Lord of the Flies. And when you read Wonder Woman's early adventures, this is what they're about. Wonder Woman butting heads with villains bent on some form of world domination, whether it's Nazis or hidden Fantasyland tyrants. And her greatest villain, Cheetah, is purely based on jealousy. Seriously, Cheetah wants Wonder Woman dead because she's envious of everything Wonder Woman is. And she doesn't understand, doubts, and ultimately is afraid of the loving, accepting society Wonder Woman preaches. Heck, I think real life has proven over and over again that some people fear working for a positive change simply because they don't believe it's possible. Now then, when did things start to go wrong for Wonder Woman? Well, pretty much right after Marston left the books, both Wonder Woman and Sensation Comics, in 1948. The long string of male writers after him just didn't seem to grasp the concept of her. Or hell, maybe they were even threatened, on a subconscious level, of the female superiority Wonder Woman represents. Heck, even when Marston was still writing, the other writers in All-Star Comics often benched her as the secretary of the Justice Society of America, even though she could whip half the team without even trying. And 2 years after Marston moved on, Wonder Woman was even dropped from Sensation Comics. Moving into the 1950s, which was a weird time for everyone, Wonder Woman didn't just have to face aliens and monsters, she had to worry about her love life. A woman can't save the world if she's not good wife material. Next came the depowering of the late 1960s and early 70s. Once being returned to her superhero status, her writers still had nothing interesting to say about her, clearly forgetting why she was an interesting character in the first place. So in 1985, they killed her in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Of course, DC wasn't totally crazy, as this was to set up her upcoming reboot by superstar artist George Perez. And to be fair, Perez created her best outing since her creation. But for everything Perez did right with the character, he made 2 mistakes that hound Wonder Woman to this day. One, he made her comics more like a Ray Harryhausen adventure film. Lots of Greek gods and monsters to deal with, which unfortunately has led many to believe that Wonder Woman is some kind of warrior chick. And 2, he made her mission of peace overly solemn. Hanging out with Wonder Woman was now like hanging out in church. And this is how DC and their writers still view Wonder Woman today: preachy and violent. Heck, in the New 52 reboot, the Amazons were devolved into a violent Bronze Age society, who got knocked up by captured sailors, who were then killed, and then sold any male offspring to Hephaestus. So much for Paradise Island. And Wonder Woman was now the daughter of Zeus. You see, even though hundreds of myths around the world have heroes and civilization itself being born out of inanimate objects, well, it's just silly to think that Wonder Woman was born of clay, right? I think Marston was doing about 350 RPMs in his grave at this point. And lest I forget, one of the biggest changes to Wonder Woman in the New 52 was her sword, which she gleefully stabbed Darkseid in the eyes with. Why, in the 52 issues, she brandished a weapon on the cover 17 times, while not once in Marston's original run of 110 issues. Heck, even in George Perez's run of 62 issues, she only brandishes a weapon on the cover twice. Also, during his run, she only used weapons against monsters, never people. But still, George did start the weapon precedent. The creator who really drove home this tough warrior woman view of Wonder Woman was superstar painter Alex Ross. In his possible future story Kingdom Come from 1996, like almost every other character in the story, Wonder Woman had lost her way and became hardcore. She even helped lead the superhero community into the climactic civil war at the end. But the real proof is in Alex's classic cover recreations. Action Comics #1 and Detective Comics #1 are very faithful. But I guess Sensation Comics #1 wasn't violent enough for him. So instead he recreated Wonder Woman #1. But even that wasn't good enough, as he swapped out her magic lasso for a frickin' spear. From then on, that's how everyone viewed Wonder Woman. She was a badass chick, just like the villain-turned-hero Xena Warrior Princess. Even the late great, very great Darwin Cook had Wonder Woman sit back and allow revenge killings to happen right in front of her. Topping it all off was Greg Rucka, a guy a lot of people consider to be the best modern Wonder Woman writer. He had Wonder Woman murder somebody in cold blood. Apparently that's the only way to handle villains with mind control. Even though she never had to kill Dr. Psycho, and he's been running around since 1943. Now we all know grim and gritty is popular in comics. But that's not what made Wonder Woman the huge hit she was in the 1940s. First of all, look at the weapon Marston gave her. A magic lasso. She didn't fly down and start stabbing people. She simply lassoed them. Backed by her strength and its mental command over people, she barely had to fight anyone. You see, Wonder Woman was a hit because she was different than the typical superhero. And she was fun. As I mentioned, the other problem with Wonder Woman is how solemn her whole mission of peace has become. Even as DC has tried to correct the mistakes of the New 52 with their rebirth, her mission of peace and compassion is still overly dramatic, heavy-handed, and just downright boring. So I say again, read one of Marston's comics. His Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman, was a breath of fresh air. She was as light-hearted as she was caring. And she was just as sassy and quippy with bad guys as Spider-Man is. Wonder Woman was a hit because she was the epitome of a superhero adventure comic, with a hidden PSA message. Now, she's a straight-up PSA message with a bloody sword. Lastly, because we're on the topic, I want to briefly mention her powers. Pretty much from the beginning, she was DC's most powerful hero, next to Superman. George Perez's reboot really drove this point home by giving her the power to straight up fly instead of gliding. The heck was that all about?
That wasn't flying, that was falling with style.
But then he also removed all her advanced tech and her mental powers. I mean, did you even know Wonder Woman was originally a powerful telepath? She used to be able to control all her devices with her mind.
I still marvel at your transparent plane, Wonder Woman. A robot plane that you fly by using brain waves.
One step forward, two steps back. Even in her big feature films, she's reduced to slow-mo kung fu fighting World War I soldiers. Wait, World War I? Is there any aspect of Wonder Woman DC won't screw around with? Heaven forbid we see her toss a tank into the next state, a la Superman. Personally, I think Wonder Woman will never be the all-out hit she used to be until DC returns her back to her classic self. Make her fun, make her powerful and advanced. And stop trying to make her some badass warrior chick, like all the other badass warrior chicks in comics. That's not who she is. Does any of this make sense? Anyway, thanks so much for listening to me yell at the clouds again. And be sure to let me know what you think about all this. And while you're doing that, why don't you like and subscribe too? I mean, somebody has to, right? Might as well be you. Can't be me. YouTube frowns on that. Boy, do they frown on that.